Yep. All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll note that all board members are present with the exception of Patricia Bodie, who we expect may still be joining us. So hopefully we'll see her in a few, but out of respect for everybody's time, we'll get started. We will start, as we always do, with the acceptance of our July 28, 2022 minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. There's Pat. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Let's next move to our report from our secretary. Good morning, Joe.
Yes, good morning, Mayor and board members. My update references an item I mentioned last meeting in that we're moving ahead with a mediation with Huber Brewer over the EMS project and at Clary and
Elms?
Elms, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And we expect to have that scheduled later in September. So our outside counsel, Jim Hughes, will handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not binding, so it's be an attempt, which is allowed under the contract, to find common ground, hopefully resolve everything.
Good.
So we'll have a further update in September.
Okay.
That completes my report.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Any questions for Joe? All right, let's keep moving. We will next go to our report from our program manager. Good morning, Chris.
Morning. How's everybody?
Good.
So we'll just run through. I know the largest component of discussion today is going to be on status of Henniger, which we'll definitely jump to here in a second. Just to run through a couple other things, though. The under project budget and approvals, I don't have. We've been talking past couple months about making some building budget modifications. I'm still not in a position to do that yet. Obviously, pending settling of a few other things that will help us reconcile where we are budget-wise, and then be able to bring that to you for action. You do have a resolution, I believe, today for the extension of the contract services for the independent compliance monitor. So that's there. The under project closeout, happy to report out that on Ed Smith there, that after today we'll have 100% complete on Ed Smith in terms of final payments, which is good because it allows us to now advance with putting a final cost report in on that project in particular. Huntington, we anticipate to be in that position next month. I was hoping to be there this month, didn't quite get there with a couple of little items. And then just continuing our effort to develop final cost reports for each of the buildings as we get there. So under tranche 2 schools, again, just collecting our closeout documentation, running punch list to ground, and getting closer to getting final pay-apps for those in the third and the fourth quarter of 22. So there is a fair amount to getting these closed out and dotting the I, so to speak, and getting all of the documentation, not just for the construction component of it, but also for the diversification plan component, collecting all that paperwork, collecting all the documentation that folks have been paid and evidence thereof. So it's a lengthy process to get all that documentation in one place. So, but I'm pleased with what the teams are doing. It is an arduous process, but important nonetheless. So we're getting there. In terms of construction updates, largely the Fowler component, the Corcoran, the Nottingham, Clary, Elms, and Danforth are all relatively in the same, and I don't mean to generalize, I'd be happy to go into detail, but they're all largely in the same boat. We're all 90+% complete on punch list. We're all 90+% complete on collection of closeout documentation. It's largely just reconciling final change orders with contractors, dealing with some stuff that may have been contentious in terms of cost and entitlement, and coming to a close on those. And we're working our way through that, so we're getting there. So then to speak to Henniger in terms of where we are, been pushing very hard up there. It's been averaging up there 55 to 65 people on a daily basis up there. That's been steady for the past several weeks.
Can you give us some context for that, Chris? Is that a lot of people? Is it not a lot of people? Is it more than we've had over the summer?
It's a lot of people, yes. I mean, from where we were before the summer months, it's obviously gone up, and they've been sustaining that, which is good. Would it be great to have a little more than that? Sure. But we are absolutely challenged. A lot of folks are challenged with people right now in terms of availability, in terms of manpower. Nobody likes to talk about that, but the COVID is still a factor that when you have a crew working in close proximity, it can take people out for a week, and that's meaningful. Yeah. So yes, I'm They've been steady, which is what I'm pleased about. We've been working 4 10s, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10-hour days, and then 8 hours on Friday. And then on Saturday, obviously, we're not pulling in 60 people on Saturdays after you've worked them, a 50-hour week already, and then to pull people, but we're still getting participation on Saturday, and this weekend we're trying to get participation for Sunday as well. So a good effort is being made. And so I want to talk a little bit about what you have in front of you, which wasn't in the packet. I included a color copy, and I'm hoping that will represent, we'll walk our way through that in terms of what's going to be done and what's not going to be done. And so we tried to graphically illustrate that for you.
By the first day of school, just to be
By
clear.
the first day of school, correct. And obviously, this is a progressive turnover. We've been working with the district and their facilities folks to identify, which is an entirely other map, which I didn't print copies of. It's a lot more colorful. But we have a plan to phased turnover of different spots in blocks, so that their cleaning folks and their setup folks have an opportunity to get in there. So that is a progressive process between now all the way up to, the week that we're going to open.
Chris, what are you defining as the first day of school?
For classes versus teachers, right? Yeah, I mean, the classes, we understand that's the 7th and the 8th, and that's a two-part deal. And then they're off on the 9th. So for us, it's the 7th. We're turning over classrooms well in advance of that, between this weekend all the way up to and including, that up to that 6th, for cleaning. And there will be areas that will go right to the 2 days before, in terms of finishes, but those are identified on there so that it's progressive. So the areas in red, let's talk about those first. Those are areas that won't be occupied by the general population in the building. So taking that apart, if you go to the second floor, that's what was the old library space, which is going to be, when it's completed, converted into 4 classrooms. So that area won't be ready for that opening on the 7th to be able to occupy. And folks understand that, your staff is in tune with that. The yellow areas that you see identified are areas that you will have occupancy, but there is work in there that we are still going to have to finish. For instance, the 2 rooms that are identified on the second floor in yellow on the far end, those rooms, by and large, and the interior will be there. We have 2 windows that have to be cut in yet to the exterior. They're cut on the outside, but they're not cut all the way through to the inside. And we had an issue there with a dimensional issue with the window that's going to be installed there, which complicated that. So we're going to turn the rooms over for use without the window cut in on the inside. So the room will be there and it'll be usable, and then we'll have to figure a way to sequence coming back in there to cut that final opening and to trim that out. So that's the second floor in terms of where that is.
Sorry, Chris, those are classrooms, those 2?
The 2 yellow on the end are classrooms, correct? So, and just to clarify, you're going to open with the same number of classrooms that we opened with last year. When we finish construction and we hand you everything, it'll be a net gain of 5. But you're going to open with what you opened last year, which is still obviously short of the ultimate program, which will be 5 more. So, the yellow, I also just want to talk through that a little bit. So you're going to occupy, but when you walk through that building on the 6th, you're still going to see pieces that aren't complete. I didn't try and illustrate every single condition on here. In other words, we replaced a lot of doors in the building, and you're going to see that tile isn't finished to the door frame, or maybe the door frame didn't get finished painted. So you are going to see pieces up there that are, you walk through and you could say, well, that's not done. I recognize that, and we didn't illustrate. You would have had spots of yellow all over the place here. We tried to communicate to you the areas that are, specific areas that are going to have a little bit more work intensity to them. So on the first floor, just to speak to that, let's start with the cafeteria. We worked through that in the cafeteria kitchen and determined that the priority was the seating capacity.
Correct.
for the building. So we're going to turn over the seating area. We're going to utilize, my understanding is we're going to utilize a temporary serving line to be able to serve food in both cafeterias, but the cooking portion of that upper level cafeteria kitchen will not be online for the opening. And that's something that we've worked through a contingency plan with that through the district.
Correct.
So,
Food service has a plan for it,
correct.
an
Yeah.
alternative serving line.
And that's coming along, I mean, if you walked in there, it's coming along well. The finished ceiling is in, the finished lights are in. The floor, I believe, is starting today. The flooring in that area will be starting today. So beyond that, there's a couple other areas of yellow the other area of red I want to speak to on the first floor is there's a classroom, a single classroom. It's in the old admin, or the old main office or administration area. That we've identified that as not being complete. We're still pushing on that to try and get there with that one. But that single classroom there.
We've talked about reprioritizing that though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The yellow area that you see at the main entrance, the doors are there, the doors are functional, the folks can exit the building. It's won't have to be considered a blocked exit or anything, but I don't have the ceilings in that space. There's ceilings and soffits, and there's a fair amount of work left there to complete that. So the decision was made, my understanding is operationally, the decision was made not to use that as the main entrance. They're gonna operate the way they did last year. But that is still there for egress purposes. And then once the roof, which is happening today, the roof above that canopy gets tied in, then we'll advance the work in that space to finish the ceilings and the soffits.
Was that roof repaired? Are we all set with that roof?
Yes, yeah, they're up there. They're there today, actually, to make the permanent fixture of it, yeah. So, but if you're referring to the incident that occurred, that didn't get protected the way it was supposed to. That was just,
You
something.
just shared the details for those that may not be familiar with.
Sure.
what you're
We
referring to.
we have a couple of windows that were cut in up above that main office area. The bluntly stated, the contractor didn't protect that the way they were supposed to. And it got left, obviously, with some of that rains that we had on Sunday were pretty significant, and it caused water to get into the office and saturate the carpet. And so they've since tore that out, and they're in the process of reworking that now to get that back online.
But should be all set by the time we get people.
That's my understanding, right? We picked a carpet yesterday that's readily available.
Correct. The push is to get the main office repaired and operational by the start of school.
So you said the push is to get it done, so is that gonna happen? So what's gonna be the time frame for for all of this? Because we keep having all these setbacks.
The main office, my understanding, will be online.
For the start of school. The repairs from the damages over last weekend are in process now. They will be done by the time school starts. It's new carpet and sheet rock repairs to the ceilings.
I think what's important to note is that the difficulty becomes the teachers still have to get into those classrooms at some point before kids.
Correct.
And I'm not quite getting the timing, if there's gonna be enough time to get them in there.
Right.
So that's what's making this difficult. So by Friday, I really need to see where we are in case I have to make alternative plans to put them somewhere else.
Sure. And we're meeting on Friday again at 11 to regroup on that. And I don't think you need to be someplace else. I think we're gonna bring that back
Okay.
to try and explain the sequence of how we're turning over what and where. This kind of represents that. Nate knows it because he's the author of, he's been the one putting all the colors on here, but the idea is that we're turning over sections at a time. Right now, there are rooms that are up there that have been cleaned and are set up, and that process is just going to continue over the next week and a half, working to that end.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to go into that with more detail.
We can do that offline.
Yeah, and Tom is in tune with that, and Dave Delaney's in tune with that, because we've been working hand in hand together with that. We're also going to do, I just want to speak to, we're going to do an operational walk on next Wednesday, the 31st. Last year, if you recall, which I know you do, we had a lot of issues with keying. We had a lot of issues of why didn't this door work and that door work. I've been assured that we're in much better shape than we were, but I want a hand-in-hand walk with the administration to walk up there and understand, make sure we have a key that fits, make sure the key work, you know what I mean, from that side. So we're gonna do that. The other walk that we're gonna have is obviously we have there were certain portions of the building that were identified as under construction when you did you did the annual fire department inspection, the life safety inspection. So that's another inspection that'll be happening that we're going to put a date to next week, once we have an understanding of where we are, so that we can bring them in and walk. So, because I know we talked about that before in terms of what's going to be done to make sure that we don't repeat, you know, some of the operational issues that we had last year. So,
How many classrooms will, besides these 5, will not be ready for the teachers to go in and prepare for their classes ahead of time?
how many won't we have ahead of time?
Besides those 5?
Yeah,
Are
I was gonna say, Nate's gotta help me a little bit with that.
There are the 2 music classrooms in the portion of the building, and then there's one small room adjacent to the new upper-level cafeteria that's used as the in-school suspension room. Those are the 3 classroom spaces that require the most work at this point. The majority of the classroom spaces around the perimeter of the building are in good shape. There's a majority of them that are initially clean. The furniture is generally arranged in the classroom. They need a final cleaning, but they're ready to go. So those 3 spaces, the music classrooms and that one front, are the ones that we're pushing on the hardest right now.
See, words mean a lot to me, right? And you said majority, so what does that mean? Is it 75%, 80%? What's the majority?
Of classrooms currently, there's
That's
probably
usable.
50% of the classrooms at this point are probably initially cleaned with furniture in them. By the end of this week, Monday of next week, that number is probably closer to 85. So, I mean, that's what I mean by majority. I mean, we are working with teachers back in the building Wednesday and Thursday of next week. I know there's alternative discussions going on about where they may be, but that's the plan that we're working towards, is that by the end of the day on Tuesday, the classroom spaces are ready to accept teachers from our standpoint. Now, obviously that's gonna put Tom and his team up against the fence to then get in and get things final cleaned and all that, but that's the timeline that we're working towards and pushing people towards.
So can the 50% that's ready now be cleaned by Tom's crew?
They have done an initial, those 50% have initially been cleaned by the district. And the furniture is moved back in there. So the furniture all came out, they did their initial clean, they moved all the furniture back in, got it set up. But, and Tom can speak to his process, but I know there's another clean that has to happen in all those spaces. And those are the large chunks of buildings or spaces that we're trying to get turned over, and then telling contractors you're not going back in those spaces after we turn them over. And that's the sequence that we've been working on with Tom and Dave to get hashed out.
We also want to be conscious of when we release people to, even though that room may be ready, we have to make sure that we have a pathway that gets folks to where they want to be without trying to commingle with operations that are still happening in the building. You know what I mean? And that's the piece that we're continue to fine tune and plan as to, okay, you can have that whole block and go there and enter here. You know, so that's the piece that we're continuing to work to develop.
So are you going to have a plan in place in appropriate time, except for those 3 classrooms,
Yes.
to let those teachers in? Because last year, it was very difficult for many
Right.
teachers in many of the buildings. We had to pay extra money and overtime for people to clean. So this was very difficult last year. I
Yeah,
don't
it was.
think we should be repeating it again this year.
Understood.
Yes. 31st, the teachers are back for the first 3 days.
I'm sorry.
No, I was answering the question.
Okay,
That's all.
sure. So The yellow, Nate, anything I missed that we still wanted to talk about? I know that you identified the music suite as a piece that's still gonna be out there a bit. In terms of life safety systems, that's that white box on the upper left of that comment. The fire alarm system, the plan is to ring that out and have certification on that system by the 31st. Obviously, we'll do the same thing with the PA to make sure that we have a functional PA in all the spaces. The security cameras, there'll be about 120 of them operational. I don't know what that is in the context of the whole. Nate, do you know what our total number of them are?
I think there's 130 on final count, so it is the lion's share of the cameras.
Yes.
Generally, the cameras that won't be functional are the ones in the red spaces, largely that there's some
In the
that
cafeteria.
watch that serving line space, those cameras will not be, but the cameras at the new upper level cafeteria, those cameras were brought online last year, so they are there and ready to go.
The external cameras are operational? But did we disrupt anything with the external cameras?
I don't
There's a
believe.
combination of new and old. I can speak to the new are operational. We can check on the existing. By and large,
Before we
yes.
renovated, we had 20 cameras in the building, so we're up to, what is it, 130 now? So some on the outside are the older style, we didn't touch those, in the newer areas, but no, we'll work with Chief Moon to make sure those are all operational.
The security team is checking each camera to make sure.
Okay.
Beyond that, the HVAC systems, the HVAC system, I just want to speak to that they'll be operational, meaning we'll move air and it'll do what it's supposed to. The reality is it may not be fully balanced because if we have areas that are offline still, what does that mean? It means that maybe you're getting a little more airflow in one room than you might get in another. But we'll get it fully balanced once we're there. Just wanted to point that out, that's one piece that, until we have all spaces turned over and to get that fully balanced. We spoke to the operational coordination of that joint walk, the fire department inspection, and then beyond that, we're meeting daily with the contractor, obviously with the general contractor, to speak to them, finding out what they need and trying to just take away any obstacles that are in their way. And then obviously, those are daily huddles, and then we actually are having weekly meetings with them as well. And then we're gonna meet twice this week with the district and their staff to walk through that.
Quick question on HVAC, Chris. I remember when I toured Henniger last year, that was a complaint that we heard from some students and teachers was climate control or lack thereof. So when you say it's not fully balanced, do we know presumably we know the areas that are, let's be specific. It's August, it'll be September. There inevitably will be hot days.
Yep.
Do we know what rooms are going to be the hottest? And if so, can we be working with the district to make any necessary accommodations?
We could Go ahead.
Yes, we can make necessary accommodations. The new units that are coming on this line or online this year generally feed that upper level cafeteria space. So we can obviously pump more air into that space to help cool it down. The majority of the classroom HVAC last September was the first September that it was operational. So those bugs are all worked through. And we have not modified the HVAC to the majority of those classrooms. So the classroom spaces should function the way that they ended the school year last year.
Thanks.
I think we covered a majority of the questions. Other questions?
Chris, I just want to highlight something. I think obviously you guys are doing yeoman's work and trying to get all this work complete, but I just kind of want to reemphasize too, safety, securing some of this stuff, making sure that teachers and students are there, that we're not rushing so much that we're making things a little bit hazardous.
Right.
So, I mean, I know that sometimes the coordination between the district and the cleaning and then the construction going on sometimes maybe this, but I just think that it's imperative that it is a joint effort, making sure that we preserve the best safety as we can for both the students and the staff as they're returning to the building.
Right. And I think that one of the best ways that we do that is to walk with another set of eyes. because in our eyes, that's okay. But in an administrator's eyes, that's a hazard or a problem or a potential for somebody to do something. So I think that walk through the building, and we'll do that a couple of times just to make sure that we keep IDing things that are of concern.
And Chris, I have to jump and run, but, so we're not gonna have a repeat of last year?
No, don't want a repeat of last year. So,
Okay.
The walkthrough on the 31st, will the crews be in there working, so
yes.
the administration will be able to see all of the activity going on and the potential hazards?
Yeah, they see the activity right now, but yes, they will be. So, and that isn't necessarily singular. I mean, that's our first to kind of walk through, and I really want to just, like I said, make sure that we understand where people are coming in and out of, make sure that we have cores in the doors that we need to have cores in, and that those are keyed, you know what I mean? But that's not a singular event. I mean, that's kind of something we're going to contingency plan all the way through to make sure that we got it covered.
This question isn't necessarily for Chris. Dean, Tom, at any point, do we have a sit down with the staff and talk about the work that's being done so they have some understanding of how we're moving through the building?
We can do that, yeah.
I think we probably
Good
should.
idea. Very good idea. In kind of similar spirit, I think that, oftentimes sitting in this seat, we don't see with our own eyes some of the challenges, both the good and the bad, but given what we're discussing today, some of the challenges that our teachers, administrators, and students are up against. I would appreciate it if between admin and the contractors, if schedules permitting, there be opportunities for us as board members, both JSCB as well as school board members, without speaking for them, to be able to get a walkthrough before the first day of school. If we could do that, that'd be helpful.
Before the first day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Not a command performance, but for any board members that want to see it, I know I would like to.
I would as well.
Okay. We'll work to coordinate that.
And on that note, again, this is more operational, so to the superintendent and the team, I think that, to Council President Hudson's point about not repeating, what happened at the beginning of last year, I think it was a convergence of kind of construction-related challenges, operational, behavioral, all of those things coming together. On the non-construction facility side, I would just encourage the district to put any possible resources into Henniker in those first couple days and weeks to really try to make sure that those students are fully supported as we work through any of these remaining challenges. I think that's really important.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for Chris? Yeah, Joe.
Question on the red items.
Okay.
So can you just give me some perspective on, is this, we're gonna work weekends and you're gonna have them in a month? Is this, you're not gonna have the cafeteria till we get in there in December break, or?
Good question.
I think you're going to work for the next 2 or 3 months, Nate. I don't know if you want to speak to that in a little bit more detail, but.
I mean, honestly, right now, there's been no effort put towards how do we recover and what's the new date for turnover those spaces. I mean, all effort right now is on what we have to do to get school open.
Gotcha.
If we hit that milestone, then we can drop back, but absolutely our intention is to continue to apply pressure there. To your point, weekends, obviously we're gonna drop back to nights. We'd like to see that additional effort continue and try to get these spaces turned over as quickly as we can. I could, but I don't want to stand here today and say it's going to take this long. We haven't analyzed it yet. We haven't had that conversation.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I assume the classroom,
Say we should get the classrooms first.
yeah, the classroom should go faster.
Yes.
Line service is gonna take longer.
This kitchen, in that kitchen area, there's a lot of plumbing, mechanical work, so we should be able to get those classrooms first. Is that a fair statement?
It is. I mean, the second floor classrooms, the drywall framing is up, the sheetrock is up, utilities are generally roughed in, there's drywall, joint compound going on the walls. I mean, they are close, but as Chris pointed out, we're kind of strapped for manpower, so if we have available manpower, carpenters to pull them out of there to go put ceilings in and make spaces safer, that's the decision that we made this week, is to put stuff on, to know that we can get, 99% of that done.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Superintendent, since there's no timeline on the music rooms, and there are students who find music very important to them, has your staff come up with an alternative for those students who aren't gonna have a music room?
Just to clarify that, the music suites will be ready
Operational.
for the start of school. Those are two of the classrooms right now that are sort of lagging behind and require the most effort to get there. So it is likely that the music classroom teachers may only have the Tuesday before students come back to set their classrooms up. But the music classrooms will be ready for the first day of school.
Okay, and that's some of the red.
The music classrooms are not highlighted because they are, they will be there by the start of school.
Oh, okay.
We have just outside of the music room, there's a lot of work that has to happen here in the ceiling. The work in the classrooms themselves is not extensive, but the ductwork and some of that we have to do in this right outside, and that's the challenge, is getting folks in physically in there. The rooms are largely, the equipment is still in there and everything, so.
To answer the part of the question though, there's a lot of alternative planning going on. Just because even though they say the rooms will be ready, we don't know the condition that they're going to be in. So there's a lot of planning as to what alternatively what we do to make sure it's a positive experience for the kids.
Any other questions for Chris? Chris, anything else for us?
No, I just appreciate, as always, appreciate everybody's patience. It's a tough process, but
Yeah.
we're almost to the end of a 5-year adventure, so.
Yeah, appreciate the effort.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. All right, so moving on, we have one more report, and that'll be on our financial statement. So we'll welcome Donna up to the microphone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, the report that you have in front of you is going to be the long report this month, and that's for the month of June. We do the long report every 3 months, every quarter. So if you want to open up and follow along with me on page 5, that's where I'm going to start. Everybody have it?
We're getting there.
Okay, good.
Page 5, you said, right?
So the highlights for the month were we did make the vendor payments that were approved in June by the JSCB, and they were also paid in June. And also we did receive an incentive rebate from National Grid in the month of June as well. So at the end of June, the JSCB fund had a total of $19.6 million for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 cash. So compared to the May statement, cash did decrease by $1 million, but that was due to the vendor payments that were made in May. Also included is $375 million in capital assets, and that is for all project activity up to 6/30/21. Now, we did have some projects close in 2022, but they're not recorded here yet, okay? They will be recorded when we do the final audit, and that is going to take place here. I'm prepping for it, but it will take place in October. So we will see these final numbers come more to life when they present the final audited report to us in November, okay? So the total liabilities for the month of June is $323 million. And that does encompass the Phase 1 and the Phase 2 bonds that are the total that is due. Also, at the end of June, the unaudited total net position is $71.7 million. So now I'm going to move on to page 6. And page 6 shows our balance sheet. That's our statement of sources and expenditures. So Phase 1 sources and expenditures do include $11.7 million of pass-through funding from the district. That was for debt service. And there was federal subsidy payments received to $722,000, and we also had a $35 earnings on interest. And those were all reported in prior months. We did have, in Phase 2, our year-to-date sources is $22.2 million, and that was also pass-through funding from the district, and that was for debt service. Also, we had $3,912 of earnings on investments, and the district did receive the $27,010 this month from National Grid for incentive rebates. And there is more to come on that, so we will be reporting more in future months. The year-to-date expenditures for Phase 1 includes principal and interest payments of $11.7 million total, and the federal subsidy of $722,000 was transferred out to the district, and I did report that in a prior month. Also, the year-to-date expenditures for Phase 2 includes vendor payments of $40 million and a $22 million in principal and interest payments reported in prior months. Now, that $40 million encompasses payments that were made from July 1 of 21 to June 30 of 22. So that's for the entire year, okay? And let's see, oh, that's pretty much all I've got on that page. Our transfer out, yep, I got that. Okay, so let's go on to page 7. And page 7 is our cash flow statement. And that report represents all the sources and disbursements on a cash basis that flow through all the JSCB accounts. So those are all actual figures from July through June. And it does show that we did end the month, the total year, with $19.6 million. Now, I do want to make one point on that. Out of that $19.6 million that we do have left, $6.5 million of that is money that is earmarked for debt service payments that we have to make in June. So technically, we have $13 million left to make project payments. Okay, so we're winding down. We're getting there. We're almost to the end of Phase 3. I remember when I was reporting $300 million. Okay, and then our last page, page 8, that shows our revenue and expense inception to date, and for both Phase 1 and Phase 2. So the inception to date sources for Phase 1 obviously have not changed. It's 141.6. Same thing with the outlay, that's 141.6. The Phase 2 sources is at $292.2 million. The only thing that increased there was the additional money that we received on the incentive rebate. And then our total expenditures is $279.1 million. I did include on the last page our financial summary, which is what I usually report monthly. It's just a more condensed version of what I reported to you, and it's easier to look at. So does anybody have questions? No? Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Okay. Looks like we've got a few resolutions here, so I'm going to turn it back over to Joe to walk us through them.
Thank you, Mayor. We have resolution number 13, which would be our monthly payments to the various contractors.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. We have resolution number 14, which would extend the Landon and Ryan contract for independent compliance services relative to the diversity plan. It would extend that contract to June 30th of 2023 and change it from a lump sum payment, as we've been doing, to a payment of $950 per pay application. The reason why is as we wind things down, they'll have less work to do.
Okay.
As they help us close out these various projects.
Makes sense. Motion? Yeah, Joe?
This doesn't take us till the end of their work though, right, on these projects?
Well, at the moment, this is an estimate of the end of the closeout period.
So we think their work for everything they're currently doing would be done by June 2023? I'm just asking if we're gonna have to extend this again,
We don't anticipate it to be extended again, no.
because people will be paid, their work will be done, et cetera. Okay.
I mean, generally, they work, there's a lag there
There's a lot, right.
for them to, yeah. so
They
that
can't finish till you close everything out, right?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. You have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And finally, resolution number 15 is an item I believe I mentioned at the last board meeting. It's to fill a vacancy on the board members being authorized to sign the trustee form for payments that we do at the end of each meeting. And Mr. Swift kindly volunteered, I believe, so we're proposing adding his name to that list.
So
Do
moved.
we do the ceremonial prick of the finger now, so he's signing in blood, or wait till after?
Do I run as fast as I can, is the question.
It's only a few $1 million, $1 million here, $1 million there.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thanks for taking one for the team, Steve.
Thank you, that completes our resolutions.
All right, any other business to come before the board? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Good luck over the next couple weeks. We'll be watching.
Get there.